Hi guys, welcome to Campfire Discussions with Brandy. I decided to stay in this side of the studio because it was more comfortable for me. Next week we might do something different, but I do have a guest next week. We have Dana Hinman Allen joining me next week, and if you don't know who she is, she's an awesome lady who is going to be discussing election, the election integrity and stuff like that. She's pretty incredible, so you want to see that. But tonight, hi Jeremy and hi Sarah. Tonight we were talking about the Riverside fires, and in turn the Beachy Creek fires, the Lionheart fire, that all kind of became this one massive incident exactly 2 years ago today. Here in our area, it affected Estacada and Malala and Detroit Lake, and many other places, but we can only speak from our experiences. I have asked for some stories that I will discuss with you tonight, but I also want to show, I have a video that we're going to show in a little bit that shows, it's a flyover video of after the fires had been cleaned out, and we're done. Essentially, it's a flyover to see the effects of those fires. It's pretty devastating. For me, I was an Army brat, so I grew up all over the place, and Oregon is, out of my 36 years of life, 17 of those years have been in Oregon. So Oregon's my home. And if you're an Oregonian, the outdoors is really important to us, whether that be because you're camping or you're hiking or you're doing anything outdoors. You're floating the river, you're kayaking, you're boating, the outdoors is important to us. It hits really hard when something like this happens. And oh, hi Shaylee, that's my niece. Hi. Especially when something like right now, the reason I decided to talk about this tonight, we're going into a red flag warning, which for those of you that don't live in an area where wildfires are prevalent, that means that we're at high danger for fires. Over Friday and Saturday and Sunday, the humidity is down to 0%, I think, tomorrow and Saturday, and 2% on Sunday, which is very bad. Our heat is high, and there's going to be winds. Now, in 2020, it was the Labor Day fires that this happened. To the day today, 2 years ago, is when we were evacuated, and it was caused by low humidity, high heat, and wind. So a red flag warning is just kind of letting us know, don't do anything stupid. Don't throw your cigarette butts out. Don't light a fire anywhere. Don't do something dumb that could start a fire because it'll go out of control. I know I've spent my day talking to people because I run a nonprofit. That was a big part of the supporting people during the last fires, and we still support people to this day. So I took a lot of phone calls today, a lot of texts, a lot of emails, a lot of messages. And today was about people are scared. They're nervous, they're worried, they don't know what to do. And the reality is there's nothing we can do right now because there is no active fire going on in our area. There's fires in other parts of Oregon right now that are devastating, near the Idaho border, Central Oregon. But there's nothing right now we can do except hope that it doesn't get to a point where they have to shut the power off. And if they do, then we have resources to help with that. Our main concerns are to watch out for those that need, power for oxygen or medical devices, things like that. And also the elderly that, it's hot. So if we lose power, they lose air. So we're looking at trying to take care of those things. But with this stuff comes the memories of what we've been through. And that's hard. So I wanted to talk about those memories, but also the good things that came out of what we went through together. For me, I'm going to talk about my experience first. Hi, Sarah. Hi, Jeremy. Hi, Connie. Hi, Osrin, Laurent, and Shelby. Thank you guys so much. Thank you for joining me. I hope you guys enjoy tonight. So my story, the way I experienced the Riverside fire was a couple days before the 8th, we heard about the Beachy Creek fire, or the Dowdy Road fire, is what we were calling it at first, but it ended up being the Beachy Creek fire from what I understand. But so Dowdy Road was on fire, which Dowdy Road is a little ways away from us, but pretty close, near Barton. And my husband went out to check it out to see if he could help. He ended up staying and blocking roads, and the mayor joined him, and they did what they were told to do and tried to help and keep people away from kind of causing any issue or getting in the way. And he'd come home and he's like, gosh, people keep coming there. So I'd put posts out, stay away from this road. It's not worth it to try to look at what's going on. Human nature is to gawk at the car accident or the fire or something going on we want to see. And unfortunately, they're having a lot of people swarming the area. And then on September 8th, at they say it was like midnight, September 8th, 2020, midnight, is when this incident turned into something that was a half mile away from our town. So that day we were evacuated. Joel sent me and Riley to be with my friend Kaylin, who was up in the outskirts of Sandy with her family at that time. We were moved up there immediately, our pup included, our little English bulldog. And we were up there. Joel stayed out here. He ended up doing anything he possibly could to help. Beachy Creek was different from Dowdy Road. See, there was a lot of incidences that all kind of swarmed together. So anyways, he stayed down here to help. He did everything from film what was going on while we were evacuated so people could see their homes were still standing, to doing whatever the firefighters were asking of him, to eventually setting up a relief center with our mayor, a command center, a central point, and that built into something much bigger, which we'll talk about later. But during those days, I was with my friend and her family. And I remember distinctly, I didn't see Joel for a long time, and then he shows up at her house in Sandy, and he gets out of the car, and at this time we had one vehicle. Luckily now we have two, and he just threw up everywhere because the smoke inhalation he was getting down here in Estacada was so much that he got small breath of fresh air. And it wasn't fresh air because we had smoke up there too. But it was just enough to he just threw up everywhere. And then he came into the house, and he looked straight at me and he says, "They're going to let us burn. They're going to let it burn. They're pulling back everybody. And I don't know what to do." And then he laid down and passed out for a few hours, woke up and went right back out. And me, being the person I am, I had been spending days and days talking to people. This was September 10th, by the way. I had spent 2 days straight talking to people, helping get volunteers organized, helping keep people informed, lead them to Joel's videos, tell them what's going on, be the person in between him and everybody else that needed the information. And so I made a little live video of my ugly face, crying, my crying, ugly cry face, saying they're going to let us burn. They don't care about our town. Kate Brown said, "Let it burn." And it went around a lot. A lot of people saw that video. Luckily for Estacada and places like Malala and the surrounding areas, we have a community that does not stand for that. So in the midst of Clackamas County Fire, because we didn't have our fire department at that time, we were contracting Clackamas County Fire. In the midst of them threatening people, "You're going to be arrested, or you're going to be in jail, you're going to be in trouble, and you can't do this," they said, "Screw you, we're going to fight." And as you can see, you see where it says Riverside Fire? There's Beachy Creek, there's Lion's Head, and there's Holiday Farm Fire, but that Riverside Fire up there, if you look at it, and that red circle up above that's kind of on its own, is like red with yellow around it, that's right where Estacada, like quarter mile from Estacada. And what their concern was, what Clackamas County's concern was valid, was that Beachy Creek and Riverside were going to combine, and then it was going to outwards. And so it would be dangerous for their firefighters. But they didn't count on our town saying, "We don't give a shit. These are our homes. These are our people. This is our livelihood, and we're going to stay." And we had people from all walks of life come together and dig down and dig trenches and fight the fires. We had the Mennonites. I mean, everybody came together. And I know Joel's trying to show you other pictures, but something's going on with this one is sticking on there. So maybe we'll get that figured out. Everybody came together to stop this fire, and thank God we did, because it was a long month. Of the relief center we had was for a month or more, but eventually the fire had been contained, and eventually we got through it. I think it was September 14th. So at September 10th, I was in Sandy. They were saying, "Let it burn." That same day, they evacuated Sandy, and I was moved out with my friend and her family. She's like a sister to me. Therefore, her family is like my family. We all moved and relocated to Gresham, where her brother lived, in this tiny house with his kids. And there's all of us. I mean, it was myself and Riley and Letty. And then it was Kaylin, her mom, her dad, her boyfriend, her kids, her brother, her other brother, their kids. It was just a huge amount of us in one little house. And at the time, I had a brace on my ankle because I just had surgery on my ankle. So it was a big, huge mess. But we had each other, and I had communication with Joel, and I got one visit from Joel during those next 4 days. And then on the 14th, I decided the smoke was so thick where I was, it didn't matter if I was there or if I was home. I was coming home. So we came home, and I immediately got to work at our relief center that had just been set up. And man, was that a whirlwind. A plume, yes, Mary, that's what it's called. You're right, and I couldn't think of the word, so thank you very much. That was a scary fire, that's right. So we had September 14th, I came home, and we started working the relief center. What the relief center was like a command center. So we had the incident command there. We had every resource you can think of was right there with us. We had people donating everything you could think of. We had thousands and thousands of pounds of food, thousands and thousands of pounds of clothes. This is our relief center right here. And this was all Joel and the mayor's brainchild. And our nonprofit came together, and we got volunteers all over the place from Estacada, Malala, Sandy. Everybody came together. And those are food boxes you're seeing right there. We were able to provide food boxes to people as they were coming back into town. They were without power. That's the Sandy Mayor Sandpolium. And Joel's up there in the truck. There's other people here that can't all name. That was them delivering food. And we were able to provide food boxes to those that were leaving town, those coming back to town, depending on what time in the month it was. But you can imagine you're evacuated and you're coming home. And if your home is still standing, there's where all the clothing was. And I mean, there was like 100 times more than what you see here. This is a tent that was set up by the Clackamas County Sheriff's Department. You can imagine coming home. You're either coming home to a house that's damaged with smoke, but your power was out for so long, therefore you have no good food, or you're coming home to no home. So we had resources for those that had lost their homes there. We had counseling. We had everything you could think of. And thank God for our community, because without the community coming together and donating or being a part of it or working it, and I mean working 12 to 24-hour days straight, sleeping on the floor, working. We were there 24/7, and we had the most incredible people come together to fight this fire, and then also the most incredible people come together to help survive together, to provide for each other, to love on each other. So this was my experience of the Riverside fire. So it's tough today. All the stress coming at me. Me personally, I see there's nothing we can do right now. Thank you, Millie. There's nothing we can do right now except pray that it doesn't turn into something. But what we can do is be prepared and be ready. And I've had a lot of people struggling with anxiety from that time, and it's very understandable. Very understandable. So, we just need to be vigilant, and I'm praying that nothing like that happens again. We'll see what happens. So when we come back, I'm going to talk about some other really cool, inspiring stories, some other amazing people that did some incredible things during this time. And but in the meantime, let's talk about one of our sponsors, Whitney Signs. They're owned by our mayor and his wife, and they're also a huge part of why we survived this fire. First of all, our mayor, he's incredible. He does so much for this town, and I really hope people, if you don't know him, get to know him if you live in Estacada. If you don't live in Estacada, you still should get to know him. He's pretty amazing. He is the reason why we had that command center. He was on the ground. He was on the ground either in town or he was on the ground with evacuees at Rogers Ranch, which we'll talk about when we come back. He supported his people through and through. And Mary Whitney, she's amazing. She is one of my bestest friends, and their work is incredible. So check out this commercial. Okay, so before we talk about Rogers Ranch and another experience during the fires, let's look at this video. It's a few minutes long, and this video is a flyover video seeing the devastating effects of the Riverside fire, which is, it's going to show like the Clackamas River going up, like it's going to show going up the Clackamas River, and you'll see like a lot of our recreation spots, a lot of homes, things like that. So let's check it out. And if I cry, I apologize, but it's emotional.
Welcome to the city, said a young man sitting next to me. Heard you new in town, before you get around, here's a little tip from me. Best stick to yourself no matter where you go. Just watch your back and hold your own, and And if after that trouble's knocking at your door, remember, my friend, it's a town we're fighting for.
All that.
Welcome to your paradise, where the little man pays a bigger price.
All that used to
Take
be
another hit,
paradise.
just get it over with. We're a little sick, you see. Can't stay down no more, we gotta make it known. So get back up, you're not alone. And then hit 'em back, leave 'em gripping to the floor. You never had a choice, they're knocking at your door. Remember, my friend, it's time and this is war. It's time and this is war.
Right there.
Welcome to the untold. Take the higher road, that's what they always say, as if they know the way. They won't take it from me. But don't ever doubt yourself, cause life ain't just a dream. You made your own, so kick and scream. The people who will act with a never-ending force. You never had the chance, so what you waiting for? The day has come, my friend, cause this is war. It's time and this is war. Light another wick, better make it quick. We ain't got a lot of time, cause the powers that be don't want us free, so they gotta double shine. When the dust settles in, they're gonna pay for their sins. Made up my mind, gotta stand side by side as we drag all the lines to the table for sacrifice. It's time and this is war. It's time and this is
So I saw the comments on there before they went away. Somebody said Sapat, I believe, said it was horrifying.
Hey, real quick, it didn't show it on there, but the credit goes to Green Resource on Vimeo.
Did you guys hear that? Green Resource on Vimeo gave us that video, so give them credit. Check them out. Yes, it was horrifying. Rhonda said that she just went up there recently, and it's still so devastating. Yeah, it is. I was sitting there bawling during this video because this is our home. This is where we take our kids fishing. This is, some people lost their actual homes. This is where we go create memories with our families. This is what we've grown up with. I technically didn't, but I moved to Oregon at 19, so I consider myself growing up here too in part ways. So yeah, it's devastating. It's scary. And I'll tell you, one of the reasons that this happened is we're not permitted to log the way we should be. If we were permitted to log our forests the way that it needs to be logged, it wouldn't have been that bad, because the more dead and overgrown stuff that's there, the faster it lights up and spreads. So imagine if that area was logged, it would have been under control so much faster. Secondly, Governor Brown decided the let it burn policy was the way to go, and local town folk had to come in and fight a fire. If they had been fighting it from the beginning and going after it with everything they had, it would have never gotten so close to home or actually taken people's homes. We lost 139 structures in Clackamas County alone to that fire. And that's just the Riverside part. We're not counting Beachy Creek or Lion's Head or the other one down below. So yeah, it's devastating. I wanted to talk to you another story about evacuations, and this is coming from people that I've talked to, people that I'm close to. There was a group of evacuees that when they left, they were in their trucks or their RVs or just their vehicles, and they'd go and they'd stay at the parking lot at Fred Meyer, and then one of the Fred Meyer parking lots kicked them out, which is sickening. And then they found out about Sean Rogers and his wife had 2.5 acres in Troutdale, offering it up to evacuees. They called it Rogers Ranch, and they went on out there. Our mayor and his wife were part of that group of evacuees, and from what I understand, they did everything that we did at the Relief Center. I mean, they fed them hot meals. They provided everything they could possibly need. Their hospitality was above and beyond. So to the Rogers family, thank you. You were in Troutdale, but you're a part of our family because you took care of our family. We're grateful to you forever. And I can't even imagine, personally, with my health the way it is, I wouldn't have been able to be in that situation. And there's a lot of people, disabled, elderly, that could not be in that position. And some were left behind, some were moved around and toted around in super uncomfortable ways. And so thank you to Rogers Ranch for doing what you did, because you provided a space for so many that didn't have a place to go. That was an incredible thing to do. And I know that I commented back and forth with Sean today about the situation happening. And I know it's still stuck in our hearts today. It's as if it happened yesterday. Adam said that was not that easy to fight with nature. No, Joel said those guys were awesome. Mary tagged Sean. Jay said are turned away from hotels in Portland because they won't rent a single bed to a family of 3 when all the other rooms were filled. And I mean all. Yeah. I just ate a moldy pretzel. I'm so grossed out. Okay, Joel. So yeah, that's another evacuation story. Yeah, Jay, you and your family with your son, you were pushed out to Portland trying to find a hotel to stay in, and they kept turning you guys away. I know others that, stayed with family like I did, or were evacuated to other places. It was just a free-for-all. We were not prepared. This came really quick. And I for one am grateful that we're thinking ahead this time. If anything is to happen, we're thinking ahead. But I mean, it's just crazy, the stories that you hear that happened during this time. Another story I remember clearly was a friend of ours had just lost her daughter, and she had her grandsons with her, and she now all of a sudden had 4 grandsons, had just gone through the loss of their mother, her daughter, and her elderly husband, and they went out to Prineville, and they were in a campground for a while, and that was really hard on them. Luckily, they were a little bit of ways from everything as far as the smoke inhalation and stuff, but imagine coming back after all that loss. Imagine that. I mean, she's an amazing, incredible person, another one of my best friends, and to see that family go through that, 2 big, huge things occurring within the span of, I believe, 9 days. Very, very crazy. Everybody was uprooted. Another lady I've talked to, she's a single elderly woman by herself. Her neighbors across the street took her with them to evacuate, but she was put into a position where she didn't know anybody. She was really uncomfortable. She didn't know how to interact, so she just kind of sunk into her little shell and did what she was told and was miserable the whole time. You know, I imagine there were a lot of people like that. We had a gentleman that was up at the campground across the street from our promontory, and he has now become somebody we check on regularly, but he was down at our relief center camping out in his car because he didn't want to leave. And so we did everything we could. We got him in a hotel, we fed him, we clothed him, we did whatever we could to keep him comfortable during that time. And your comments are coming so fast. Hopefully Joel sends me some of them because I don't want to miss anything. Jay said, I went back home as soon as my wife and son was at her sister's place to care for all the feral animals left behind with no food or water for several days. Yeah, that too. We had a cat in our neighborhood that was left behind that Joel was taking care of. Here at our home, we had people stopping in and resting and eating. And before we set up the command center, he was like, just come rest if you need to rest, if you're taking care of the fires. Again, so Mary, are you asking to play the video again? Is that what you're asking? If so, I'm sure we can do that. But I missed some of these comments. Some of the comments, maybe Joel can send them to me. Actually, many people had lost their will of living because their home, their memories were gone, and they couldn't get to do anything to save it. But those relief center really helped many people that time. Yeah, I really feel that the relief center that we provided was super important, not just to give food and hot meals to the firefighters or anybody that was around, or boxes of food or clothing or anything. I mean, we had brand new shoes, we had socks, we had everything. But it wasn't just that. It was we had counselors there. We had myself, I became a counselor in those days. We had people that were going through the same thing, talking to each other, hugging each other, crying with each other, taking care of one another, and supporting one another. That was really important because, like this person said, if you've lost everything physical, tangible, you need to remember all the fact that you have a community behind you, you have that love behind you, and that we're there. And that was a huge, huge importance. We had lots of state representatives and people show up to help, and it was just a really good time of people coming together. We camped at Rogers Ranch with Sharon Darcy. Yep. Mary Whitney was one of the people that was at Rogers Ranch, which was amazing. And so, yeah, we can't play the video during the show unless we've pre-downloaded it, but we can put it on our Facebook after the show if you'd like, Mary, and make sure that's available for people to see. We just have to pre-download it before the show if we want to show it on the show. It's just a whole production thing. But we will post it on the page when we can. That way everybody sees it. There's a video there that Mary says is really important, so we want to make sure people see that. So keep an eye out for that after the show. We'll get that up there for you guys to see. Before we move on to our next story, let's go to our next sponsor, and that's Hitch and Post Pizza. Another amazing community member, another person who was a big part of supporting the Relief Center, supporting us. And Mary says the video that we're going to post after the show will make you cry, so definitely watch it. And I think I know which one she's talking about. And there's a reason I didn't put that one on tonight, but I already blubbered through this first one. I would be blubbering even worse if it's the one I'm thinking about. But yeah, check out Hitch and Post Pizza. Valerie's amazing. She's so supportive, and she's one of the funniest people you ever meet. And she's very loving and kind and supports our sports and everything else you can think of. And her pizza is amazing, so check it out. And we're back. It's shared on the page, Joel said. So it's already on the page. Perfect. So don't leave my show to check it out, but check it out when the show's over. Thank you, Mary. You're amazing. Like I said, Mary Whitney and her husband, a big part of our town, a big part of making sure everyone's cared for and loved for. And they're amazing people. They've become our family. So we love you, Mary. Wolfgang said that will be great. Okay, so another story I'd like to share is another person very close to us. He and his family were evacuated, and they were set up in the parking lot at Abundant Life Church and Good Shepherd churches in Sandy. And he talked about, and I'm going to read this because it was in my messages today, and I want to make sure I give the right information here. Hold on. He said, we had a different experience evacuating to the movie theater in Sandy. I'm sorry, I got that wrong. 2 churches that stepped up their game were Abundant Life Church and Good Shepherd. Very community-oriented and were ready for this difficult time. I do remember all of the Estacadans keeping informed about their properties, constantly keeping all of us in the parking lot informed of what was going on back in town. And then he said that Abundant Life Church fed everyone in the parking lot for over 7 days. Yeah. Good Shepherd had full meals coming out of their kitchen every day. They helped out so much. And that someone in his family still raves about the coffee and muffins every morning from Abundant Life Church. Those are that experience, and I can't say that's its own experience because there are so many experiences like that. The community of not just Estacada, but as you can see, Sandy and Malala and all these communities came together to love on those of us that were evacuated and those of us that were suffering from this fire. Sandy itself was not hit by the fire. They had smoke stuff, but they weren't hit by the fire, just like Troutdale, where the Rogers Ranch was not hit by the fires, but they were dealing with the smoke inhalation. But they still came together. They didn't have to, and they stepped it up, and they took care of our people. They took care of our family, our community, and that is amazing. That's just incredible. You see the best in people in times like this, and I'm always trying to remind our community, it's, we might have differences of opinions. We might have different political beliefs. We might have differences in the way we try to do things, but try to remember those times when the rubber meets the road, when the hard times happen, when the devastating things happen, when crises appear. We all have no problem coming together and taking care of one another. And I can't even tell you how many volunteers we had just at the Relief Center that I probably haven't spoken to since or may not run into all the time because they came from not just our town but all over. But they are all so close to my heart, and they're all so important to me because they decided to use their time. We're all going through this hard time. We're all scared. We're all worried about our families and our homes, but they took that time to come together and take care of others. And that is so important to remember because we could be doing that every day. We could be taking care of each other every day. I've dedicated my life to do that personally, and I know so many that have. But join us. Take care of your neighbors. Take care of the people that are near you. Take care of other people, because when you're taking care of people and you're loving on people, all that negativity crap goes away. Yeah, it's hard to hear negative thoughts or negative things from people that might not understand you. But at the end of the day, if you're focused on helping people and you're focused on loving people, the rest of it isn't as important. And when things like this happen, you realize what the true important things are. Backwoods Brothers, so I'm assuming that's Tony, said, love this, sis, right on, thanks. James said, yes, exactly. William said, crisis always make people come together. It does, and it's a shame that it takes a crisis, and that's why I'm pushing this. We need to remember that so we can come together when maybe it's not a crisis, like take care of each other, take care of one another. I wish that a film producer would pick this Riverside fire incident and make a movie. Me too, Mary. I think it would be a good one, and I hope that they would get the real stories from people, like, for example, the Mennonites and the Youngbergs and the Randalls, and Riley had a friend who lives up in the boonies, and her family and her dad got together with all these people that just fought the fires, and Digger John and all these people brought their excavators and their tanks, and the Mike and the Dobbs family, who at the time were living in Gresham, but they had property out here in Estacada. I mean, I could go on and on. All these people came up and just fought these fires. Jen King and her family. These people just came together and said, screw you, we're going to fight this fire and save our town. It's an incredible story. It would make a great movie. It would be amazing to see somebody take that and turn that into a movie, because it's an incredible story of hope and perseverance and strength. It would be incredible. Tony says, yes, this is from Tony. Love those families. Mary said, also our vote no on the merger campaign. Yes, for those who want to know, during this time of the fires, Clackamas County, the one who was told to step back and did, were in charge of who we were contracted through. And there was this vote the November after this fire of either vote no or vote yes on the merger to Clackamas County. Luckily, we voted no, and now we have our own Estacada Fire again, and they're kick-ass. They're awesome. What's amazing about that is now, like, even our nonprofit personally has a direct line of communication to our own town fire department, and we're communicating with each other through this time, and we're willing to work together to make sure we get the information and help each other. There's no competition there. It's just working together to help. And that is incredible. And we wouldn't have that if we didn't have our own town fire department. Joel said, speaking of that, this month on the 17th, we will be filming interviews of anyone from Estacada affected by the fires. Yes. So I wanted to mention this. Starting the 17th of, this 17th of September, we are inviting anybody and everybody who was affected by the Riverside fires to come and film in our studio and talk about your story. And yes, we do plan to interview Mary Sean Drinkwine for sure. He is one of our number one people. Come and just tell your story, and we will film you, and we will put it out there for everyone to see. We want to hear your stories. We want to hear how it affected you, what you went through, what happened during that time, and how you persevered and how you overcame and how the community helped, or whatever your story is. We want to hear it. So if you are local and you were affected by the Riverside fires, please reach out to us. We want to hear your story. Rogers Ranch included. We really would love to have Sean and his wife here to talk about that experience. So yes, we would love to hear that. I was going to bring that up at the end, but now is as good a time as any. While we're here, we'll come back and we'll end it in a minute. But before we do, let's check out our Pissed Off Patriot line. Okay. Sorry, guys. For some reason, that commercial is likened to freeze. Sharon Darcy and her cats. Yes, Sharon Darcy's awesome. And Brian Short. They're also a part of our huge extended family. Anyways, like I was saying before, we want to hear your stories. Please, please, please sign up to do this, because like it says on there, we have limited space. If we know you're coming, we will make sure that we're here for you. We will give you the address of our studio. We'll get you booked. We want to hear as many of your stories as we can, and we will go as long as we can that day to get those stories. It's important to us. I think it's important to the community. And like Mary said, I think it's important for everybody to hear. John Nieder said it was fantastic how the fire brought out the best in our citizens, but sadly it also brought out the worst in a few who decided to loot homes that were evacuated. Yes, thank you. Not yes, but thank you, John, for bringing that up, because that's the next part I was going to talk about. Not only do we have people fighting fires and helping support the relief center, or informing people like Joel, driving around, videoing, live streaming to show people their homes were still standing, but we also had people, and I know there was all this talk online about them being like some sort of mafia or some sort of hillbilly circus or whatever, but there were awesome people that were protecting our homes too when we were all evacuated. They were there, and they were, some of them had guns, some of them didn't, but they would stop people through town. And you know what? It might have been an inconvenience, but I'll tell you what, it stopped a lot of the looting. And yeah, like John Nieder said, there were some unfortunate people that came out to our town and decided to take advantage of the fact that we were evacuated and try to steal from our homes. I can't tell you how many burglaries we stopped, or those people that were protecting homes from driveways or neighborhoods. Thank you to all of you. We are grateful. No matter the negative press you got, we are so grateful that you protected our homes and made sure no one stole from us. That was another part of this situation. There are those people out there that decided they were not going to allow it. We even have an experience when we were up at my friend's house in Sandy. It was the day we were evacuating to go to Gresham. And so there was this car driving up the hill. They're out in the boonies, so they thought we were already evacuated. There was this car driving up the hill, and they drove in, and we had left, but her boyfriend had stayed behind, and he was sitting there kind of watching the house, kind of knew what was going to happen. Some car drove up, and he had to walk up to them with his gun, and they still didn't leave until he shot at the ground to get him to go. And it's like, that's the kind of stuff we faced while we're terrified that we're going to lose everything in a fire, while we're having to evacuate and our families are displaced and we're scared to death. We're having to worry about these people coming in and robbing us. And so thank you to everybody who stayed behind to stop that, because that was very unfortunate to see. John McAdoo, Estacada Fire District Board member, helped with the vote no on merger campaign. Please interview him. Yes, I think John McAdoo is one of my favorite people ever. He is the cutest man ever. He is so sweet, and he had a passion for us having our own fire department long before the fire happened. He was a big part of pushing for our own fire department, and he's an incredible man. I would love to see his side of what happened there. So, John, if you're watching, please come tape with us, because we'd love to hear your story. Yes, if you loot, we shoot. If you can still see signs in some places around here that say, if you loot, we shoot. I think on the old highway going out, there's a few signs still there. That was our reality, you guys. I mean, that was our reality. There are people in this world that'll take advantage of these situations, and there are people that did. And that's heartbreaking. But it's great to focus on the positives that came out of it. There are people that protected homes that weren't theirs. There are people that protected neighborhoods that weren't theirs, but they felt that it needed to be done. Every single person that came together was important. Whether you were protecting homes, whether you were live streaming to show people that their homes were still standing, whether you were at the relief center, whether you were offering a space for an evacuee, whether you were offering your whole ranch for an evacuees and feeding them and providing, every comfort you possibly could, whether you're a church that provided meals and kept families safe, whether you were a friend that was hugging everybody that you could to help calm them down, whether you were counseling people or just talking to them, every one of you matter. Every one of you got us through this. Whether you're fighting the fires, digging the trenches, throwing water on it, providing your trucks, providing your pond, every single person that came together was so important. We couldn't have done it without every single one of you. Jay said, I remember that little old lady we helped a few times at the relief center who had nothing left after her home was damaged and her shop had been cleaned out. Poor lady was devastated and scared and in shock. And unfortunately, Jay, there were a lot of those situations. But just sometimes sitting with people and offering them a space to cry, to talk, to be calm and have people surround you with love. Also offering you a space to give back so you can focus on the good. Those were really important. That was really important to do. That time many evacuated. Yep. Cleaned out as in looted. Yes, Jay. Yeah, there were places, people that had lost their homes and then their shops would be looted. And they lost everything. And let's talk about, there's a bureaucracy here. So after these homes were lost, those who lost their homes would have to jump through lots of red tape and lots of hoops to get their homes built, and some of them aren't even rebuilt, you guys. That is something that needs to be fixed. There is no reason why 2 years later they haven't been able to rebuild their homes. And I know there's a long-term recovery group that's been working on homes, but they can only do one at a time, okay? And I know that and Mary tagged Lou's Drive-In and Megan Freenup. So before I move on, Lou's Drive-In was amazing. They're a restaurant in our town that provided hot meals to the firefighters. I think it was over 6,000 hot meals that they provided. That was incredible. And Megan Freenup is part of Eagle Creek Saloon. They also provided tons of meals. Without the two of them, we wouldn't have had a lot of the hot meals we had at the Relief Center for the firefighters and for our volunteers. So thank you to them too. Like I said, I could spend 10 hours thanking everybody. That's how many people came together to make this happen. So I hope that we can take that and we can focus on the positive of that situation, and love one another and be there for one another. It's super important to remember that we're all good. Most people are good. Not all of us, but most people are good. And we need to remember that in times that aren't necessarily in crisis. And right now, in this weekend, in Oregon, I don't know where you are. If you're local and you're going through this red flag warning, just remember, your community is there for you. Don't jump to conclusions. Focus on what's actually happening, but prepare. And you have the resources now. We have our own fire department. The city of Estacada is even more prepared. ECW, our nonprofit, is even more prepared. And we're all working together to help make sure that you guys are safe, to help make sure we provide what you need. So remember that and reach out to one of us. Joanna said, yes, it needs to be fixed. State legislature and county commissioners need to work on the issues. Way too long not to have a house. Yep, and Joanna's right. And if you remember Joanna from last week, she's running for House. She's amazing for Congress, and she's incredible, and she's right. Our county commissioners and our state legislature needs to change in order for there not to be so much red tape to build those homes again, to get what they need, to have their insurance cover. And that was another thing. People had insurance not covering certain things and covering other things. It feels like such a scam. And to see that happen was really hard to watch. Anyways, so as we close tonight, I just want you guys to remember, and I'm ending it a few minutes early, but I want to end it on a good note. No matter what is going on, think about these stories as stories of hope and inspiration, to remember that people can be good. People can come together, even in the hardest of times. This was in the deep, deep, deep middle of COVID outbreaks, and we were able to do this and come together and forget about everything else and just take care of each other. So remember that people can do that. It is possible. It is possible to take care of your neighbor and love your neighbor. And please do not forget, if you are local, and I mean local as in Sandy, Molalla, Estacada, the whole area, and you have an experience, a story that you would like to share about the Riverside fires or Beachy Creek fires and so forth, please come, let us know, and come on the 17th and we'll film an interview with you. We'd love to hear your story, and we'd love to put it out there for everybody to see. I think it's really important that everybody hears your stories, because there's so many of them. I couldn't even possibly touch on even a percentage of them. And thank you, Joanna, for all you do. And thank you guys for joining me and listening to me ramble on. I hope you have a great night and a good weekend. And those that are local, again, I say, if power does go out, if we have issues, please make sure you reach out to those you know that are there, including our nonprofit and myself, as well as the mayor, the city, and everything else. So reach out, fire department, reach out to any of us. We're all here. We're all communicating. We're all trying to do this together and make sure everyone's safe. So again, have a good weekend. Stay cool, stay safe, and we'll see you next week with Dana. Thanks, guys.
vocal